And yeah, just welcoming you all. There may be some more people to come on, or they may just be getting the recording. It's always hard to know. So I'll just land you into today's session. And yeah, in years gone past, we did these massively detailed sessions, and I think when people are not studying astrology, we're real geeks. Madeline and I are geeks of astrology, so we want to get everything in. And then actually, I think people, it's just too much for people. So also, we're working with some other things. So Madalena's been back in the backstage, training up in chakra wisdom of astrology and all sorts of other things. I've been backstage doing other training, including astrological divination. And so I think people love divination. They love having their cards read and all sorts of things. And I've been really enjoying fusing years of doing divination work with actual astrological divination, which is not just pulling cards. The cards are astrological, but I'm also working with whatever guidance we're getting astrologically. So we thought we'd give you a bit of a treat today to make it a little bit more interactive. So today's session is going to roughly be this. I'm going to start off and I'll do a little baby recap just of this last year and then a couple of slides starting to set the scene for 2026. And I will be referring a little bit to some of the kind of karmic energy that I referred to in the book and other things. And then Madalena is going to go more deeply into the Rahu Ketu, the eclipses, and the two eclipse seasons we're going to have coming. So it's great because Madalena, if you didn't know, she does eclipse readings. So it's really wonderful to be co-creating with Madalena today. And this is something that we feel very excited about. We've got lots more co-creational possibilities for 2026, right as the timelines would say we should. So really grateful to welcome Madalena on, and then we'll be going back to me. Then I'll kind of do a synthesis, and then you'll have a quick comfort break. But just before the comfort break, we invite you to write questions in the chat box that would not just for you, okay? That would be really stupid, okay? Because it's making a group thing all about you. But where possible, writing some questions about the overall year or themes for people doing their dharma or whatever. And we're going to do a divination reading. So we're going to be dancing with the stars. We're going to be dancing with the guides and the cards. And there will be a bit of a space for clarification as well. Okay. So that section, we might have a little bit more chat if you want clarification. And during the break, Madeline and I will decide which questions are going to go into the divination. And then we'll do that together. Okay. So I just really, really want to welcome you into this space. And I invite you to go into receptive mode. Allow yourself to be this being who is striving for their higher purpose in these exciting times. And I'm just going to start to share the screen. It's going to take me a little minute to get this all ready. Yeah, so I just really want to call upon our higher selves, monad selves, and avatar selves to be with us in the ever present now today to receive whatever codes and wisdom come through. We're here communing with the celestial bodies, and we call upon the wisdom of the celestial bodies, the rishis, our guides, the day keepers of the Mindlands, the day keepers of galactic wisdom, to Jose Arguelles, to Mark Elmy, my teacher in that system, and to Ganesha, the patron deity of Jyotish, the science of light. Om Shrim Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Shrim Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Shrim Ganganapataye Namaha. So you're all going to get the recording of this. And so just allow yourself to tap into your aspirations for this year, okay? And I want to just do a little recap of 2025 and what a tremendous year it's been. And I know so many people have had so many states of dissolve. And people are starting to feel like they've been somewhat reborn. A lot of people have new people in their lives in whatever way that's work or dharma or relationships. And in terms of Chinese astrology, the year has not finished. And actually, I think we're actually in quite an intense time right now, but we've got a little bit of respite actually today. And we happen to be in a very powerful full moon. So we're right actually in the full moon of Ardra, which sits in Gemini. We're just in the last hours of that. And Ardra is actually one of the most transformative nakshatras. And it's like earthquakes and lightning bolts. And actually, 20 minutes after we went into that energy yesterday, we had an earthquake here in Mexico. So I was in the middle of that. Albeit, it wasn't, I think only two people have died. Bless them. I pray for their safe transition to another realm. And yeah, so it was interesting because Madalena and I both had a lot of very powerful dreams in the last 24 hours. And then the earth was moving. I got up at 5 to message Madalena, like, wow, I just had this really powerful dream. And I could see, done divination on it. This is something that's really likely to happen. And then as I went back to sleep, then this earthquake happened. So I think that that's something to say. We're shaking things up, and we already have been shaking things up, and yeah, change. We're really in the midst of change. So so yeah, I mean, some of you came to some of the teachings we did last year on the Venus Saturn codes, and I mean feels like 500 years ago to me right now. But I have been like hanging out with some people and having a quick look at their charts. And again, seeing some of those hallmarks we were seeing, which were why we were telling people about this Venus portal that was opening in 2025. That would mean that a lot of people would have a lot of karma to work through. There would be a lot of transitioning. And that was really starting to open up to this new priestesshood, this new vanguards of the golden age energy, and that there was kind of like, how would I say, like you have alumni in the US and you have the year of so and so, and the people who are in a certain part of their awakening were like the year of 2025 to go through certain things. And it was only because I was chatting to some people recently, I remember that 500 years ago, which was actually like February last year, and in the book that had all been written about, and like what I've seen from last year and what we're really now migrating forth is such a tremendous amount of spiritual purification and dissolving, and this something that's not quite clear yet because we're really amping up to 2027 and now we're starting to get ready, is that, yeah, wow, it was a really big year, and a lot of people's value systems changed. A lot of people realize that they're on a spiritual path and they have to understand that that's how it is. So I just really wanted to presence that because I don't just want to be like, here's 2026 and forget the contexts of such huge journeys we've all been in. And so with that, we're going to just segue in now. Okay. So something I guess I wanted to presence as well, because I spoke about it a lot in the last 2 years, which also was this kind of duality and burning energy, purifying a lot, burning a lot, almost going mad with our own dualisms and our own delusions as well. And that was a very big component of the way last year's astrology was sitting. And it's not fully complete, but really the deepest part of that is over. And what I have seen a tremendous outpouring of is a lot of people talking about spiritual narcissism, bypassing this kind of, these exploitative gurus, this kind of sexualized spirituality. And we can definitely see everything that we said last year, like that's going to become real public domain. There's going to be a lot of outing of what we might call shadow spirituality. That journey has to take place, and that has really arisen. And I'm not here to pass judgment on what presents itself in the 3D world as right or wrong, but what I can tell you is that we will all feel a less of that burning dualism in this year to come. And so Yeah, so what we're going to talk about now a little bit is really some of the stationing of some of the larger, slower moving planets. And we of course look at Vedic astrology. So there's a lot going on with the outer planets like Neptune and Pluto, but we're not going to really go into that because Vedic astrology is looking at so many of its own things. Plus Mayan and dream spell astrology are also what we fuse together in holistic liberatory astrology. And I guess I just need to say that's what we've rebranded, what we were calling non-dual astrology, because I was in Israel and one of the elders said, non-dual, that's a crap title for this thing. And we'd always felt like it wasn't the end of the title for this. And also, there's something about the first word of anything being called non. So we've been really something for us that we've become unapologetic about since the purification of the last year is to help people understand that we're here to help people understand the journey to liberation, liberation out of the false self, out of the samsaric self, into the higher spiritual self. And there are movements of yogis doing the same in the US and other countries. So, this whole reminding students, reminding people that actually these ancient practices and teachings are about liberation, okay? And not just liberation for self, liberation for all. So we renamed what we do Holistic Liberatory Astrology. Okay. So if you hear me say that, that's just to be present about what we call this now. Okay. So we're going to be looking primarily at Vedic astrology fused with Mayan astrology, fused with dream spell astrology, which is also known as the Galactic Mayan calendar. And Madalena, as we said earlier, she'll be talking a little bit more about the eclipses. We're going to have 2 eclipse seasons this year. I'm actually going to start just by talking a little bit about Mars because one of the hallmarks, especially from like last year, end of last year, no, end of 2024 into about June this year, last year, 2025, was that people felt chronic fatigue, felt like they had no drive, no enthusiasm, didn't know what was what. And we were already saying at that time, this is like a spiritual, it's there to stop people from creating negative karma and to help people purify and slowing people down to find their real groove in life. And so what's happening is now we've had Mars has kind of started activating a little bit more. So some of the intelligence of Mars, which is not one of the slow moving planets, but it's just because it's got quite a lot going on right now. We've got a lot of planets currently combust by the sun, and that's kind of following us around for a while. And we've also got Mercury, Mars, and Venus in very close quarters. And this, when Mars and Venus are sitting together, that can create quite a lot of passion, but also a little bit of friction. And this is being combusted, this is being purified by the sun because they're very close to the sun's degrees. And so when sun is combusting things, whatever that planet usually brings, it's being purified. So it's quite interesting because at this festive season, our sense of Mars is going through a purification. We're in another round of purification, but Mars is about to mid-month go into exaltation. It's still going to be combust, but it's going to go into a really strong point. And it's kind of interesting. It will give us that kind of New Year feel of moving forward. We also had Saturn in retrograde, and Saturn sacrifices hard work, lots of these things. And Saturn was retrograde until quite recently. And I think a lot of people felt forward movement in December, okay? Where we had been kind of like rewiring and going through and retrospecting over a lot of stuff. Now, Saturn and Mars are sitting at an aspect, which means that neither of them is in their full flow right now. But what we do have, which is very different to early 2025, is that Mars is kind of in a bit of a winning streak for a while in terms of sitting in placements where it's able to do its work in a better way than it was 1 year ago. So, given this tremendous amount of transformation and dissolving we've been doing, I think a lot of people are starting to feel like a little bit of drive, a little bit of what they're supposed to move forward for. But don't worry if you don't right now, because some people can be feeling a bit burnt out. There can still be a bit of friction and pressure as to what we're supposed to do. And this year increasingly has Martian periods that for each native, depending on their own planetary components, we're all going to have certain periods of really good drive this year. And as you're going to see in a little while, this is also shown through the other systems we're going to be looking at. So do mark, like, even if you're feeling a bit frazzled, you can look back to maybe how exhausted you felt about a year ago, and that felt never ending, because that was a very, how would I say, unnormal and unconventional extended period of time of Mars being very stuck. Okay. And that was part of the spiritual mechanism to slow us right down in our tracks so that we didn't charge ahead in the wrong path. The universe wanted us to dissolve. It knew we were going into this clearing process, and that was super important. And we're still in, this kind of clearing process. For instance, the year lord in the galactic Mayan calendar from 26th of July last year, it's yellow resonant seed. And the seed is about getting rid of a baggage so that we only hold on to what is valuable, so we can really bring together our new communities. And this is why, alongside a lot of dissolving that was taking place, relationships and situations that are not going to take us forward to the next level, there's been a lot of very harsh pummeling and refining, and that's still underway. And we're still in the wood snake year until mid-February in Chinese astrology, and serpent is so transformative. And I've been doing some little mini readings for people checking their charts recently, for people who've had some illnesses. And some of them had real stuff going up for them around serpent energy. So this serpent year, it's not finished, but it's very intelligent about how that ends and begins and how that aligns with other astrologies. Okay. So just to say, Mars is kind of our friend a little bit this year. We're starting to gain momentum, and you're going to see that. Wow, there are just all these motifs and symbols and totems that come across the systems that are speaking to each other with such intelligence that it really gives me conviction to understand that if you did feel like now something's becoming more clear for you to follow, that yeah, it's kind of stacked that way across the systems. All right. So something else that's been interesting has been that we've had Jupiter back and forth from Gemini into Cancer and back into Gemini. And Jupiter is presently stationed in Gemini, which is kind of like Jupiter kind of goes into one sign a year, but it will often retrograde for maybe 4 months, sometimes more. And so it will often have a little bit of another flavor for a while. So Jupiter has been in Gemini, which is about information, communication. Jupiter expands things. It's very airy. So when it's in Cancer, there's an airiness to it. And then something that's beneficial for everybody in some way, because of course, Jupiter, where it's placed for you uniquely, it's going to expand some area of your life. So this is why it can be helpful to find out what's happening for your Jupiter this year, because sometimes we've been stripping away a lot, and then we're going to have a year where our personality comes back online. The year after that, we're going to find gains in our life, things like that. But what's happening that's unique in terms of it only happens every 12 years is that Jupiter's going into its exaltation sign of Cancer, where we got a little flavor of that at the end of last year. But from the 2nd of June until the 31st of October, because then Jupiter's going to move around a little bit more in and out of Leo and retrograding. So basically, we're all going to have like a kiss from Jupiter. And Jupiter's like the high teacher. It's kind of wealth expansion, but it's that spiritual wealth. It's also children. And it's kind of like this benevolent lucky streak that can happen to things. Jupiter kind of blesses and expands wherever it is. So it's really helpful for you all to note that the second half of this year, or even from early June, we're all going to be experiencing that Jupiter kiss, okay? And that's going to help that some of these things that we've been gestating are going to come online. And for those of us in the global north, it's that lovely summertime. So there is going to be this sense of exuberance and optimism that's around. And you may find that something that has been sitting kind of, there's been an aroma of possibility. You're going to feel it come online. Okay. So just wanted to let you know this lucky energy that's around for everybody. Okay. Yeah, Jupiter's actually going retrograde again, 26th of March to the 10th of June. So we're going to have it ending off its journey in Gemini with a bit of a retrospective, and that can be really good if you're working with for some sort of information or some sort of communication or some sort of interpersonal work, that you can really dot the I's and cross the T's with whatever that is, okay? And then you're coming into this kind of ta-da energy, okay? So I really want to encourage you all to use that wisely. And of course, that Jupiter retrograde is hitting right around the time that we come into the new astrological year and spring equinox in the global north. So that's a really good time to get your offerings straight. A lot of us find that even though we say it's astrological new year, like we go away because we can see where everybody just goes away every year. And often people get the sense of hope again at equinox. And then April, they're still getting their ducks in a row. And then May is usually like very, very profitable, prominent month for getting a lot done. So you're going to find that this retrograde energy, Jupiter just helping you to land with all of those energies that it's been sitting in with its year in Gemini, just that can be a really good time for just landing. It will look different for different people, but really getting, whatever it is that you're bringing forth, really optimized, okay? Because then the lucky streak's going to hit soon after, okay? So also something that I've heard even some masters of like Kundalini talk about this recently, and they don't normally talk about Vedic astrology, yet they are trained in Vedanta and Vedic studies. So Saturn's our big karmic planet. It's cold, it's about sacrifices, delays. And of course, we all have it stationed in Pisces since last year. And Saturn roughly takes around 2.5 years in a sign, and that can change a little bit depending on its retrogrades. And this year, Saturn is in Pisces all year. And Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac. So it's very spiritual, it's very watery. It's finishing off the lessons from this embodied path. And it's this watery kind of Neptunian energy that's basically about preparing to dissolve from the physical world, to no longer be a material being and to just merge our spiritual essence. So when Saturn is there, Saturn is also saying, I've completed my 25 to 30-year journey around the zodiac. And Saturn is okay. When Saturn is associated with Pisces, it's not in an enemy sign. So Igor Kuvayev recently was saying, this is such an optimum time for everybody having these spiritual processes because, uh, the Lord of karma and time is creating spiritual growth for everybody because everybody is going to feel the effects of this. And of course, that will be different for each person depending on that placement. But this is really, really why we have this amping up to what we might call these openings to 2027. And in my book, I talk about 2027 and the different prophecies and the different tribes and systems that are all seeing this as a very important time. So this year, we have Saturn just in Pisces, okay? And it's still in this slightly dualistic energy, but what's happening is as Saturn migrates further and further to the end of the zodiac, very slowly, it's coming to raise our concerns about the more altruistic parts of spirituality. And some of those are, about our generosity, our true non-egoic spiritual self, the need to work with community, to expand for all beings, the understanding that spiritual wealth does not mean we have to take anything with us, but also the need to create a legacy that is benevolent to help others in the cycles to come. So we're in a massive completion stage at this moment with Saturn in Pisces. And what's interesting is in 2027, Saturn's going to be mostly in Pisces, but it's going to start to interact with Aries, which is then its next station the year after that. So this year is unadulterated Saturn and Pisces energy, and we will see a lot of people. What Saturn will do is it will confront our fears. It will also, if we've got planets sitting in Pisces, it's going to bring up karma around those. And this is all to tweak us, to delay us, to make us more authentic, to try to help our full journey. Saturn brings great rewards, even in the material realm, but it does so by restriction, confinement, suffering, all of those things. And so the best way to work with Saturn is to apply yourself, to work through these things, to confront the fears, because Saturn wants to reward us. And so we're all collectively in this period of time where Saturn is in its most kind of in a very spiritual place. And so this is why it's very interesting, because the recent placements we had were really confronting more delusional spirituality, because Saturn will not let us do anything but walk authentically, or it will imprison us if it thinks we're being wonky. Yeah. So we can expect further humbling around the spiritual process for the greatest good, for the collective right now. And this is why these high yogis are speaking out about this. Okay. So then I'm just going to speak quickly on Rahu. So Rahu, you've all probably heard me talk about Rahu, Ketu enough. Madalena will probably speak about them a little bit. Rahu is the north node if we were looking at Western astrology. So it's one of our karmic nodes, and Rahu is the forward motion, seeking, even if it's delusional and greedy, seeking in like inspiration, stimuli, strange situations to take us to our karma. Okay. So it's always representing where we're going to. Okay. And Rahu is in Aquarius right now. Okay. And this is another reason why so many astrologers feel we have these gateway moments, these sort of portals we can enter and optimize at this time. Because Aquarius is all about new societies, novel shifts to the status quo, going against the norm, not being, and not caring what other people think as well. And Rahu doesn't care about rules. Rahu's insatiable. Rahu's also very materialistic. So it will try to shift some things in the material world. So currently we have Rahu in Aquarius, and it's going to be in Aquarius until very late on this year. So this Aquarian sensibility for all of us is activated. And right now, this slide's saying Shata Bishak. This is where Rahu is currently stationed, and it's going to be stationed there until, I think, July. Until 2nd of August, sorry. So Shata Bishak is, the astrologers, the Vedic astrologers are very excited about this, because Rahu's very comfortable in Aquarius anyway, and Shata Bishak is ruled by Rahu, okay? And so this is like mystery school wisdom. One of the descriptions of Shata Bishak is the 100 physicians. So people with Shata Bishak energy are usually very into novel healing, fascinated with the mystery, going to the void. They can be a little bit reclusive. But one of the other more hidden names for Shata Bishak is the 100 Avadhuts. And the Avadhut is a word that is seen as synonymous with the Sushumna, the central channel in Kundalini. And it's in our circuitry, whether you understand Kundalini or not. And the Avadhut, the Avadhuti is the channel, and an Avadhut is seen as an unconventional kind of weird, crazy light worker, okay? So this is the time for the crazy light workers. And the astrologers are all saying we're going to have these amazing upgrades in healing, health, medicine, but also people like Dr. Arjun Pai, who kind of brought to the West the concept of this avadut level of Shadabishak. This is really exciting for people like us who are here to kind of be bridges to the rave mutation, to the children who are coming in with all these gifts, because we are here to unapologetically bring forth these more novel ways of being. Okay. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about some changes. So I have to change my screen a little bit. Okay. Um, so basically, as well, it's not New Year these days, and but we do have several kind of New Year energies. Of course, equinox is usually in Western astrology when we kind of recognize New Year. In Vedic astrology, it's usually around mid-April, and what's very interesting is that this year, as the Mayan year changes, it's right on the dates of the Chinese New Year, and there's total synchronicity between the totems. Okay, so we're coming out of 13 Ik, 13 being about spiritual communication, and we're coming into one Kech year, and I'm going to talk about that more in a bit. But it's just for you to understand that we're going to go through an energy change. And what's important is that we're coming from a 13, which has always got some sort of spiritual dimension to it, to a starter year. So again, all this kind of spiritual transformation that's been taking place, and we've still got all these combust planets purifying everything. That's all really taking place up to when the Mayan New Year and the Chinese New Year begin, pretty much the same date. Okay. So we're going to come into a 1 year, and this is beginning to bring a new energy for this timeline into being after this very deep year of transformation. So we'll talk to that in a little minute. And then I also want to say that I mentioned earlier, we've had this yellow resonant seed year. The new year for that is the 26th of July, and we're going to go into red galactic moon. What's very interesting is, again, that syncs up with Vedic astrology, because right as we go into that very deep portal, which we'll talk about at the end, Saturn goes retrograde, and it's all about self-remembrance. And Saturn is trying to purify our remembrance of our spiritual self as it sits in Pisces. And it's a year of galactic self-remembering, okay? Moving through trauma, moving through existential trauma, karma, all of those things. So yeah, and I write more deeply in these things in the relevant chapters in my book. So yeah, so this is just a little snapshot. But yeah, the weaving is real. Okay.